Hey guys, Opal here, and today I'm going to be doing a build, and it's like a manor garden build, and I used the new labyrinth stuff that we got in the premium shop, and I'm also combining this with some of the Hercules stuff that we got in the premium shop pack. So I built this in the Glider Trust, but you can really build this wherever. Just take some inspiration if you wanted to build a garden or a maze or a manor style build. You can take parts of these and use this, or you can copy the whole thing. I don't really care. So I just did a really basic pathing with the leaf pathing, and then I just go around and I start hedging off and bordering a couple of the edges that I know I want to be enclosed. When you're using these like maze parts or these hedges, it's quite hard to line them up perfectly. It does take quite a lot of adjusting and using the different pieces to kind of piece together the exact length you want. And this is especially when you're using these corner pieces, because sometimes they don't fully line up. I'm not sure why it is, but sometimes they're always half a block off, which means that you have to move the whole build by half a block to make sure that you don't have any gaps. This is when I decided that I wanted to use the Hercules items. I just thought that they suited really well, and I do place these fountains here, but in the end I change it to just a little bit of seating. And I also love this big cat topiary. I don't know how to say the word, but I think it looks really nice. We don't have many items like this in the game. I'm thinking of that like dinosaur item that we have that's like shrubbery and it comes like in a little circle. I'm pretty sure it's a premium item, but I'm not sure. I don't own it, but yeah, this gives me the same vibe, and yeah, I really like this item. Here I'm just making a little bit of an area, and I just fill it with some trees and foliage, and this is just to close off the area a bit and make sure that we can't see into the kind of maze slash garden. Even though it's not a maze, I still wanted it to be closed off, sort of like a maze. So yeah, I just placed some foliage and some plants and really just fill it out. I just kind of go crazy and kind of place whatever, and this usually works most of the time. Then I move on to placing just a row of gazebos, and honestly I don't really know why I did this. I was kind of just playing around and doing whatever, and I think it just turned out nice in the end. So yeah, I just kind of bordered this off with gazebos, and you can't go anywhere on the other end, but I think it looks nice for the entrance and really breaks up a lot of the green. And then for this area I just place some of the seating, and I just turn this into like a little kind of courtyard where you can sit and relax with a little bit of foliage on the sides. I ended up doing. The hedges, honestly, they line up super well, and the only problem with the hedges is that kind of archway that we get doesn't fully line up. Like the hedges don't connect properly to that just themselves. So yeah, it's great to use if you're just using the hedges, but just be aware that it's quite hard to then attach one of the archways to the hedges, because you either get a little bit of a gap or the hedges don't line up properly. So I did a lot of adjusting and just figuring out what worked, and in the end I did get it. I don't think it's perfectly centered, but nothing really is in this game anyway, so I don't think it really matters. And all of the kind of corner bits that I have where the hedges come in on each other and leave a gap, I just filled these with trees, and you can't notice from like inside the build. It's just in the furniture mode you can see that there's gaps in between. Behind the hedges on this side, I really wanted to add these floral arches, and I didn't want to put the floral arches just by themselves because I thought that they looked a little bit maybe too elegant for the space. That's why I made sure that we had a hedge in front of it to kind of block it a little bit, but you still get the pretty arches at the top. And then I just made some kind of flower boxes and placed just a few plants, and I think this really filled out the space without having to use a lot of items or yeah. The statues honestly just really fit the space so nicely, and yeah, I love the way that they turned out, and I love the way that they match with the vibe. Here I place all this rocky terrain, and I do like how it turned out, but I think that it doesn't completely suit the vibe. So right at the end I do delete this and just add some foliage in the space. However, if you did want to use the rocky pathing, feel free if you're copying or following along, but personally I just felt that the grass looked just a little bit better. Here I'm just bordering off this path to the other side of the biome, and I just kept it really simple. I put just some of the bushes, and then underneath these I put some flowers. I think this is such a good option if you wanted to maybe fence around a house or make like a little courtyard. You could do this, and I think it looks really nice. Quite simple too, and pretty easy on the item limit if you're on Switch. This is when I start working on the front of the manor, and I decided to just fence it off because I couldn't really be bothered trying to make sure everything fit nicely, so the easiest way for me was just to fence it off. And in this little area I just added some seeding and a little bit of foliage, and I think it actually turned out better than it would have looked with the fountains because it's much more open, so you can actually see the front of the house. So I just used these butterfly things, I'm not really sure what they're called, and just the curved seats. Then just adding a couple of random plants, and I just put these in places that they fit. I don't really think too much of it. And I think when you kind of just place them sporadically, it gives a more natural feel anyway, so I just decided to place a couple of pumpkins as decorations, and for this build I didn't really go too heavy on the clutter. This is when I had an idea of putting the fountain in its own separate area, so I just have an archway and I border off this area. For this weird kind of corner I just bushed it because yeah, I didn't really want to think of what I could put in there. And then I just bordered off this whole area, and like I said, it does look funny from furniture mode when you're up in the sky, like a bird's eye view, but when you're actually in the game you don't see the bushes being double lined and things like that. Like, it looks nice from the inside. Tried a lot of things to fill in that little corner, but I think in the end I just ended up putting a tree, and yeah, use these little maple trees because they're only 1 tile wide, so they're pretty easy to use in really small spaces. And then I just bordered off the whole inside with the white fence, and I really loved how this turned out. I think I'm going to do this trick in another build of mine. I think it looks really elegant and super pretty. Then I just add some foliage. I didn't want it to look super structured, even though it is quite structured on the outside, but for the inside I wanted to make it look quite overgrown and like it was kind of unkept, and I really love how this turned out. And then for the front, I just decided to put some of these, what would you call them? Like stone, I'm not sure what they're called. But yeah, I put these like ancient stone things at the front, and then this big craftable one that you can craft, which I don't know why it's so big, but it covers the background a lot, so it looks really good for an entrance. And then again, I just go through and randomly place some foliage to make it look super overgrown and natural. The last little thing that I do is try and add some lighting, and I ended up going with these flower lights because I think they look super pretty and I don't think I use them enough. And I'm very sorry about all the weather changing. It seems to only ever happen when I'm recording. And this is the final walkthrough. I honestly do really love how this turned out, and I'm excited to do maybe a couple more builds in the future of some gardeny sort of builds. Here's the fountain area, and again, I love how it turned out with the fencing around the hedges. I think it looks super nice. And for the little sitting area too, I just love how it all looks quite overgrown, but at the same time pretty structured and cute. And here are some overview shots of the build. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this video.